It's the state semifinals, Class 2 and Class 4 we take a look at. And to help me do so, to sort of take a look at the other side, the opponents for both Strasburg and Sherando, my good friend Marc Davis with WTKR. And my friend, it's just like full circle. We meet at training camp for the Commanders, and ironically enough, two of the local schools we cover are coming down your way.
Yeah, right on, Josh. Thanks a lot for having me. Yeah, it's gonna be, it's funny how this stuff works out. As you said, we have, of all the schools in all the state, you guys are coming down our way. So, looking forward to an exciting state semifinal Saturday.
And with that too, in this area, you have about 5 state semifinals you're covering, from what I heard.
Yeah, we have 5. We have 6 schools. We have 5 games, 6 schools. 2 of them are playing each other. So Class 6 all the way down to Class 2. We have a team from the 757 in there at least.
The 757 WTKR in Norfolk. I know you've been down that way for quite some time, Mark. Having all those teams playing in meaningful playoff football in the state semifinals, the community must be really happy for all these teams around that area. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Josh, they're kind of used to it because, we bank on being busy these 2 weeks, with all the schools that we're going to have in. You can pretty much look. I mean, we have Maury in Class 5, who's been a buzzsaw. I know we'll talk about Phoebus later. They have one of the longest winning streaks in the country right now. Obviously, we're going to talk about Poquoson, too. We have Green Run. We have Oscar Smith. So, just those names that, I think people around the state have expected to see playing in those final 2 weekends. They usually are. So we usually have these weekends blocked off like, hey, no vacations, guys.
Well, you know what that means. You'll probably see Marc Davis on a sideline somewhere in the 757 with a video camera and a microphone, just like I saw you do at training camp so well for the Washington Commanders. So moving on, starting off, Strasburg out of Strasburg, Virginia, 12-1 record, as I've mentioned numerous times. On our side, first-year head coach Trip Lamb getting the nod as the next head coach after Mark Roller steps down. Only one loss to Bull Run District opponent Clark County to get to this point. And in the Bull Run District playoffs, Region 2B, they did a very good job defeating Riverheads, Buckingham County, to win the region, just to name a few, to earn the right to travel down to Poquoson, a 12-1 record down that way for Poquoson, Mark. Look at the schedule. It looks like some close games and some lopsided victories. Just familiarize ourselves, the listeners, on what you can tell us about Poquoson and the style of football they play.
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. Like you said, 12-1. Some close games on their schedule, no doubt at all, and including their only loss. Their one loss was to an undefeated team, Lafayette, who's also playing in Class 3 this week. They're going to Kettle Run, another undefeated team, but that was their only loss, a 14-6 game. They like to run the ball. You're going to see probably 85% running plays tomorrow or Saturday, when these two teams face off. Not that they won't go to the air, but they're definitely, reliant on the run. You're going to see a lot of that. Eli Tyndall is their quarterback. He's definitely the grease that makes the engine go, no doubt. So it'll be a running team. All indications are it'll be a close game, and it's going to be exciting. But Poquoson's been here before. They have a lot of guys who know what they're doing. So I think it's going to be, I think they're probably feeling pretty good about being in this seat once again.
Running team is the definition of Strasburg football. This could make for a very quick game if you keep it on the ground. Strasburg, they have weapons all over the offensive side of the football that can take the ball and run with it in their wing T formation. So it's going to be interesting to see how this boils down if both teams run the football a high percentage of the time.
Well, and you're exactly right. And it's funny you say that because which actually, Poquoson may be a little prepared for that. I'm sure Strasburg is too. They play in the Bay Rivers district, and we see a lot of running offenses in that particular district. Lafayette, the team they lost to, the one team that was able to conquer Poquoson this year, was actually a very heavy running team as well. So I think the defense will be prepared for it. I'm sure Strasburg's defense is prepared for it too. So that'll make it fun. I think for me personally, I like seeing close games at this stage of the playoffs. I mean, both teams obviously are very good. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. And I think it's going to be fun. I think both teams are probably pretty prepared on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and defensively for Poquoson, what do you see them usually running in terms of defense? And they've let up some points this year, but overall, like it seems like their defense, from what little I've seen, is pretty good.
Yeah, it is, and they've bent but not broken a couple times, if that makes sense. They, like you said, all those close games definitely, they know what they're doing. And I think playing in close games helps the defense, at this stage, because they've been in the thick of things. They've had to step up. They've had to make a play. How many times have we seen it, Josh, at every single level, where it comes down to that defense making a play in a close game? And that's the difference between the game swaying either way. And I think Poquoson's used to that. They're experienced. They're senior heavy. I think it's going to be good.
That is a 2:00 start. It is Strasburg and Poquoson down in the 757. And again, Mark in the 757 with WTKR, sticking with another local matchup you'll be covering. The Sherando Warriors at 12-1, traveling down to Phoebus for Sherando. Obviously, mentioning all this previously, but going to touch on it one more time. Second-year head coach TJ Rohrbal, who took a stint away from Sherando, previously their defensive coordinator, on a heck of a season after winning 5 games the previous season. Senior quarterback Micah Carlson knows how to throw and run the ball. In this Sherando Warriors team with only one loss to a team you mentioned earlier, Mark, Kettle Run, who bumped down to Class 3 from Class 4, but it's still great competition that usually comes around our area as well. Sherando knocking off Jefferson Forest, James Wood in the first round of the playoffs, and a very crazy, exciting matchup against Salem to win the region final, their first region final since 2017. And it came off a missed field goal that went off the upright. In these 2 playoff games against Salem and Jefferson Forest, it wasn't the prettiest football, but in playoff football, you will take a win as you can get it. The Sherando Warriors traveling down to Phoebus with the longest winning streak, as you just mentioned, in the state of Virginia, 3-time state champions, including a very exciting win over Salem last year in the state championship game as well. What can you tell us about this Phoebus team and how good they're looking?
Yeah, piggybacking on what you said, Josh, I think one thing this team has going for it is experience. I mean, you're looking at 90% of this roster having been in at least one state championship game before. You mentioned that thriller last year. Zach Staten, my colleague in the office, he was down there covering that game, and he's actually a Salem alum. So it kind of pained him to watch that walk off, so to speak, touchdown. But yeah, these guys have been through the thick of it, and I'll tell you what. You were talking about Poquoson's schedule, looking down and seeing close games. If you look down at Phoebus' schedule, you will not see many close games. This team is a buzzsaw. They have rarely been challenged this year. Very strong on both sides of the ball. Defense is their calling card. Offense, they're just fine. Experienced quarterback, a running back in Davion Roberts, who is a small, shifty back who really gets the job done and is a consistent performer. But yeah, my friend, 47 games in a row winning. That's one of the longest streaks in the country. They know what they're doing. They know how to win, and it is hard to pick against them or envision them losing until someone steps up and shows they can beat them. And right now, this is just a team that is pretty unbelievable. And they get right to it in the preseason where they face Maury, another very good team in our area. So even in the preseason, they're getting themselves ready for this stage.
Absolutely, and in the playoffs alone for Phoebus, not even allowing a single point.
Right.
I would imagine credit to their tough defense, as you just mentioned earlier.
Well, yeah, no doubt at all. And I mean, the one team that maybe gave them a little bit of a run this year was Warwick. Everybody else has just not been able to. I mean, we were kind of surprised Bethel was tied with them at halftime, but then that game ended up being 56-21 in the end. So yeah, I mean, it is just a team that it just seems like from watching, when they want to step on the gas, they do it. And their state semifinals, at least since I've been down here the last several years, have not been competitive. So obviously, as a football fan, I would love to see Sherando come in and make it a game, and in the fourth quarter, I want to be seeing something close. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, I mean, not knowing much about Sherando and knowing a lot about Phoebus, I mean, this team is definitely king of the mountain until somebody knocks them off, obviously.
Absolutely. And for Phoebus, obviously, I've heard a couple, I believe just through the grapevine, a couple college commits already. Is that true?
Yeah, they got a guy going to Howard and another gentleman, he just committed. I'm trying to think about where he just committed on Wednesday. I'm drawing a blank right now, but they had two guys go D1 on and they'll have more. Obviously, this signing day thing is so diluted now that there are so many signing periods and everything like that. But yeah, they'll have they have a a roster full of Division I commits each and every year.
And you mentioned 90% of this Phoebus roster with state championship experience. How huge is that for maybe some of the younger guys on the team and some of the returners, sort of knowing what's expected, what they're going into when it comes to a big matchup like this? Because any game in the state Final Four or the state championship game, it's a huge game.
Yeah, no doubt at all. And Jeremy Blunt's done a great job of building a culture there. One of the best coaches in the state. And they're at a point now where, all the younger guys have older guys in front of them that have been here before and can help guide them through. So maybe the first group was kind of going about it a little bit on their own. Now everybody has had, a chance to learn from the guys who have been there before. So no doubt that the younger guys are being taken under their wing and kind of shown the ropes. But it's a culture. I mean, they sit in the stands or stand on the sidelines and watch the older guys do this, and they want to be there. And I think that says a lot. The older guys have laid this road for these guys to follow, and I think now the expectation is that they follow it.
Absolutely. And just last but not least, to wrap things up here, Mark, just what are your thoughts on the atmosphere when it comes to playoff football in the 757 and so many teams competing for a state championship among different classes?
No better. There's no better, Josh. I think it's one of my favorite things to, the passion, the fanfare, the atmosphere, the energy. I mean, all of it is just so exciting. And when you get here, you know who you are, right? I mean, the hay's in the barn. You've done the work. You know what works. You maybe add a wrinkle or two to try to give the opponent something that they haven't seen on film. But other than that, you know what you're doing. You know who you are. So for all these teams, it's just a matter of going out and executing. And it's probably more about the team itself than the opponent at this point. I'm going on a tangent here, but getting back to your question, there's nothing better, man. I mean, we're going to have, Green Run and Maury play each other, at Powhatan's Field at ODU. Those are two local teams. That's going to be packed and a lot of fun. Oscar Smith, we're going to, Poquoson, that's the Bay Rivers district, where Strasburg is going. I always say, I think the Bay Rivers district has some of the best fans in the state. Those student sections are always rowdy and they always show up no matter what. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I really, really enjoy just the excitement, the atmosphere, the energy of postseason football.
Postseason football, it is an inside look at Poquoson and Phoebus as Strasburg travels to play Poquoson. Phoebus is at home against a traveling Sherando Warriors team. Both games are on Saturday, two state semifinal games. Always appreciate the time with Marc Davis, WTKR, who will have a full slate this Saturday covering these two matchups with his team, plus so much more. Mark, pleasure catching up with you, sir. I hope this isn't the last time. Great to connect with you again.
Hey, no doubt at all, Josh. Thanks for having me anytime, man.